probably start at the very, very beginning, which is Glass Domain. Check out there's like a vocal track on that called Interlock, which is like a kind of synth poppy kind of sounding thing, but it's got a real charm to it.
Hey, what's up everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Accolades conversation series, in which I talk to some of my favorite artists about who or what they would recommend me checking out. Make sure to subscribe to our channel or hit the like button. Primecuts is part of the Scratch Perverts, together with Tony Vegas, a collective of turntablist DJs from London formed in 1996. They were the World DMC Team Champions in 1999 and 2001. Additionally, Primecuts won 2 consecutive ITF World Scratching titles, first beating A-Track in Hawaii in 1999 and then defending the title in Los Angeles the following year. They have now retired competition and gone on to regular live DJing, touring and holding a residency in Fabric in London. They have also gone on to producing their own music. I spoke to Primecuts about Gerald Donald, a Detroit techno producer and artist. With James Stinson, he formed the afrofuturist techno duo Drexciya, and he is also the main member of Dopplereffekt. Donald is notoriously silent about himself and even his involvement with various music projects. In a 2013 interview, when asked about his anonymity and his work with James Stinson and Drexciya, he said, "I will not directly indicate my involvement in any project. I will leave this question open to the observer's interpretation. The most important thing has always been the music and the concept itself. I adhere this philosophy. People spend way too much time engaging personalities rather than music that accompanying that personality." Frequently referred to as an afrofuturist, he said he does not wish to specify any particular ethnicity. If you're into my illustrations, this project started as an illustration book which you can still get on greatrecords.be. This is what Primecuts had to add.
My choice of who to speak about, or who to sort of shine a spotlight on, was Gerald Donald, who is one half of Drexciya, who were like a seminal electro outfit from the 90s, released music all the way through to 2003, when unfortunately the guy that he was working with, James Stinson, passed away. And Gerald Donald is maybe not a great choice because he's such an aloof man. There's not much information about him, and he's famously shunned the spotlight and wants to make it all about the music. But I wanted to talk about him because I think in this day and age the term genius is sort of battered around a lot, and I just sort of sat and contemplated him and his body of work, and he's continuing to release incredible music, that he is actually a genuine bona fide genius living and breathing today, and that we should celebrate him and all of the incredible work he's done and continues to do, because he's got so many different guises. I mean, he never actually publicly states that he's involved in a particular project, but you can go on Discogs and look at his back catalogue going all the way back to sort of 1991. I think the first thing he put out was a record called Glass Domain, which has got one of my favourite tunes of all time on it. Yeah, he's got many pseudonyms. He was involved with Underground Resistance as part of Drexciya, Data Physics, Glass Domain, Life After Mutation, Dopplereffekt, which he's still releasing music to this day, Japanese Telecom, Electroids, Muella, Abstract Thought, Rudolph Claus, Geiger. It's just endless. Yeah. He's so ubiquitous. I was actually having a conversation with my friend Rob Euro, the guy that invented the Euro Scratch, who I've known since I was a kid. He actually gave me my name, Primecuts, in 1987, and we were chatting about me doing this, and at the end of the conversation he's like, "Oh, you should check out this other label that you might not know of, Ectomorph," which is like you're putting really strict, bare techno electro kind of music. And when I clicked on it, who set up Ectomorph? Gerald Donald. He was actually involved in the inception of the whole thing in 1994. So I was sort of just gobsmacked at how I'm still sort of discovering stuff that he has done or is doing as a single artist, or when he collaborates with other people.
And what genres do I need to picture his music? Is that like you say electronica, but is it like dance, techno kind of stuff?
He's got a ARPANET is another one of his outfits, and that's sort of straight up techno. Whereas Drexciya, you would probably say sort of electro techno, but it's not kind of hands in the air dance floor music. You could definitely play it in the club, and I do play quite their stuff out, but it's more of a satisfying listen at home, to be honest, especially the more recent stuff. It's good headphone music. You know, he runs the sort of full gamut of electronic music. I think he likes to work within a paradigm of a particular piece of equipment. So the ARP in it, I think, is all made using like a Korg Triton. So it's a very particular piece of equipment. So it kind of I think he works well with just a very limited kind of amount of equipment. Whereas if we look at that modern production using a laptop, it's endless. The whole thing's endless, and I'm not sure that
it's a conversation that keeps coming back this week. Like I had a conversation with a couple of other people as well, and it comes back to like maybe it's my brain that goes in that direction, but there's something to be said about people who master something that is like specifically like one piece instead of like a whole range of like doing whatever you want. Like that's something that completely changed with the 90s. I think it's like with the music, I always noticed that it's sometimes better to limit yourself.
For me personally, I like to work within the confines of a given structure rather than, say, the computer or the laptop, which I now really just use as a kind of tape machine. I don't really, and for processing post, writing some music. I love having just like an 808, a 101, a sampler and a desk, and that's it. And then you can kind of work within those confines, and it's quick and it's fun, it's hands-on.
And all these championships and stuff like that, I remember in the 90s when you went to see like a DJ championship, it was always very technical, but like to a point that it was too technical and that was almost unlistenable. And then now it's like the opposite, like the choices are so endless. Like I kind of like the idea of like people having a bunch of records on top of each other and then switching from one record to the other. And that's like completely lost in some way, right? Is that because of me getting older and like being nostalgic about something, or I don't know? It's like something in between there.
No, I think human beings, we like to see the movements of the clock. We like to see the mechanism of something, and having the medium of records, and there was a kind of an art form in linking the records together and actually being able to cue things up and move quickly from one, transition from one routine to another. I feel quite blessed that we were involved in, that culture towards the tail end, and by the time the digital stuff had taken over, great for playing out in a club or being able to transport a lot of music. But I think in the competition sphere, it's somewhat, I think it's kind of not watered it down, but it's removed a certain element, and I think there's a bit of a culture now of people actually composing their entire routine in the studio, whereas I always thought there was something a bit kind of punk rock about taking any piece of music and bastardizing it to your own ends. Taking, I don't know, a David Bowie record or something and juggling it and turning it into a completely different groove. There was something that I really cool about that. It always amazes me that people who are involved in the competition circuit don't use well-known records so much. So there's this kind of, it's shrouded in mystery already. So if you're not using music that I understand, then I don't really get what's going on, nor do I care. But I think that's not to say that everyone, I'm kind of tarnish everyone with that brush, because there is still some great creativity happening out there.
What would be the project, or what would be the thing that to check out first?
I would probably start at the very, very beginning, which is Glass Domain. Check out there's like a vocal track on that called Interlock, which is like a kind of synth poppy kind of sounding thing, but it's got a real charm to it. It's really, like, to me, I think it's a really funky thing, and it strikes a chord having children, because the whole thing's about Lego. And I think I love the fact that you can kind of imprint your own life experiences on the lyrics and the groove. Mm-hmm. So that would be a great way to start. And obviously Drexciya, anything they've done I don't think this guy has put a bad record out, and he's put out a lot of music. I'm a huge fan, and I'm still discovering, he's involved in that, he did that, that's another thing, that's another side project, and he continues to amaze.
And there's something that he's known for, like even if it's only in the UK, or
he will be most famous for being one half of Drexciya.
Okay.
But he doesn't publicly, he doesn't actually go on the record as saying that he was ever involved in any of it. He's just happy to be putting music out and let the music sort of talk for itself, which I find him, he grows in stature even more, and I think that one of the only interviews I've read with him, he talks about communism, and I get the sense that he's a fellow socialist left winger. But he now lives, I believe, he lives in Berlin. He's originally from Detroit, and those early Drexciya records were sort of a locally released music. And then I think he was involved with Underground Resistance. They were putting their records out as well, which was
what is a Drexciya track to check out, like to first get into it?
If you check out the Sea Dweller, it's like an EP. That'd be a good way to start. And anything on Underground Resistance, which is like a collective put together by Mike Banks, is like a kind of, I think when they first started, it was Mike Banks and Jeff Mills.
Okay.
And if you see early footage of them, it's like, I just find it incredibly inspiring because it's heavy music, but there's also scratching and stuff happening. And as a collective, it's a very exciting proposition to see them performing. So Jeff Mills was like a scratch DJ back in the sort of 80s, a very, very good one. So it's like a kind of marriage of
Jeff Mills is the very famous Jeff Mills, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, him. Yeah. So it's tearing 909s and heavy acid tracks and techno, but with this sort of scratching aesthetic on top, which I can't think of anyone who's done it since. It amazes me that no one's doing it now, which is kind of why I wanted to put this tour thing together, to sort of throw all these different influences in the pot and then, ultimately build a track and then have a cut over the top.
Mm-hmm. Cool, man. Yeah, I don't know if you have anything to add when it comes to him, or like if...
I'm just trying to think what the latest thing. I think that Japanese Telecom reissue is probably the last record, the most recent thing to be released. But he's still putting out a lot of music. I think Discogs is the key, isn't it, for these kind of things? Because you can just access the entire back catalogue. It's there. There are a lot of people who are probably even more obsessive than I am.
I want to thank Prime Cuts for this conversation. On next week's episode, I'm talking to comedian and actor Brett Davis about Steve Whelan, aka Mr. Jokes. Thanks for listening, watching, or however you check out Accolades. Give us a thumbs up or follow our channel. See you next week.